Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Lionel. I'm your host for LT Productions, and you are watching I Watch You Watch. Today we are covering Belle Collective Birmingham. This is season 1, episode 4. I do appreciate everyone for coming to my channel. Please like this video. You can also subscribe, and you can leave your comments below. Let's get into this week's episode. Okay, y'all. So this episode was interesting, but we're going to get on Stormy because we left off on a sort of cliffhanger as to what's going on with this 48-hour lie. So Stormy saying that items were mixed up. Something happened with the programming as to what to actually select on the website or wherever on the TikTok. Instead of the Love Lala box, they were picking a lion box, which she already talked about, this trio packet that was coming to her. So, of course, Stormy's explaining in the confessionals that what this looks like, because although wherever they can order it at, it's showing one thing as far as being ordered, but when it gets down to the logistics as far as packing and picking and packing and shipping out, it's going to be a totally different thing. Now, I know a little bit something about that because I used to work in a warehouse for a long time, and you just get your order and that's what you do pack. I worked in a couple of warehouses. But anyways, so what she has done, she said she knew that there was an error. Amber's involved with it somehow because it's explained a little bit more that I was just trying to understand. It was clipped, the trio box, or trio collection that she has on her site, as something to pick, instead of what was supposed to be picked, which was Lala, Love Lala. Anyway, she, after just having her moment, she did get back on the live and just said, hey, for the first 1,000 people, you're gonna get a little bit extra than what you were supposed to get. She said the original plan was like for 100 people to get extra items if you ordered, but now it seems like in those first few minutes, I think, did she say like 20 or 30 minutes? But anyways, whatever the time frame was, the wrong items were shipped. And of course, they're supposed to be getting the Love La La, but they're getting extra items. So that was her way of smoothing it over on the front end. On the back end, they're losing money. Let's see. So we move on, and Martell Holt arrives. Martell Holt, who is on Love and Marriage Huntsville, has made his crossover debut over to Belle Collective Birmingham. He's there as a co-host for Lala. Of course, I don't want to see Martell, but I get why Stormy would bring him to the live. That's going to draw traction, good or bad. You know, people are going to be at least nosy, whether they buy items or not. So he's there. We know of other, I don't know if they played it because I just didn't really hear it, but they get into some, Lala and Martell, they get into some type of relationship things as far as what we heard as to what a man should do and what a man would appreciate from a woman and da-da-da-da-da. All them southern traditional things, we don't have to go into it. There's a body butter. I think that whomever was in the audience was suggesting that Martell get a body butter. Does he have his business license? Or his constructor license? What's going on with his wine that he was selling? What happened to that calendar? All that stuff that he was doing about 2 to 3 seasons ago. Where's that at? But anyways, yeah, get into that. Your son already got his own fragrance line. You better catch up, and hopefully he don't surpass you, sir. But anyways, later on, Martell is sitting there on the couch. Lala has left to go take a break, and Stormy has already welcomed the other collective, just saying, hey, you want to come on up? And they did. Fumi was I think the attraction, because obviously Martell and Fumi butt heads. Fumi said, you know, it wasn't even directed at Martell at the time, but it was about spending money on your man as the woman. And she said, until he puts a ring on it, your name is on the deed, you don't spend any money on a man. They said, well, what about a birthday? Well, if it's a birthday, $20 is the limit. Martell was not about to fight up against that, even though he loves a challenge as far as fighting up against a woman in their evolved mindset on things and thoughts and opinions. So I'm surprised he didn't hang around there. But anyways, obviously that there was a lot of people around there. Kaylin came and joined. She stood in the back and all that good stuff. So it was a good time. Fumi said, Martell don't want any of this, basically. whatever money. Then Martell did ask, okay, so what kind of money? What do you bring to the table? What job do you have? Do you work? He said. And she said, I take care of his 2 children. She said kids, but I call them children. And it was like, his kids? Yeah, I was the one. I forgot the word that she used. It was a G word. Dested the children out, but those are his children. Well, they're really yours. He gave me the sperm. But anyways, it's y'all's. It's y'all's. So, yeah. But anyways, that's when Martell said, let me get up from over here. The ladies break from being on the live, and Jason arrives. This is Kayla's man. And you can see that there is this peaceful tone and all of that. It's just something comes over Kayla when Jason arrives. And Fumi sees that too, and she's a little bit more assured with Kayla and how she is with this older man, and saying it looks like this is a good thing for Kayla as to how she responds to him when he is in her presence. Kayla tells Jason what she's learned. It is about not spending money on a man. And he said, what you learned or what you heard? Yeah, but he sat down and all the ladies were loving his presence too. So the live continues. Oh, so Kylan is there to entertain also, and she was doing this dance. And some of the collective was sitting around and watching her. And Kayla says, is it here? I know I wrote it down. Basically, she was saying, what are you on? What is she on? Like, she's really going at it. And the collective was like, ooh, at least in their confessionals, like, I don't think you should really say that, you know? It just seemed like Kylan was giving a lot of energy. Maybe you were tired, Kayla. I don't know. But for whatever reason, you wanted to say that. But we're going to get into that a little bit more. Because there's a little bit more that's just going to irritate Amber and help the agenda of how Amber's been feeling about Kayla from the beginning. Or to not like this person. But anyway. The live continues, and they actually go on further than the 48 hours. However it happened, there was this new burst of energy, and they lasted for 52 hours instead of the original 48. We'll learn about the sales in just a few minutes. But anyways, this is 2 days later. Amber's at her office, and she calls her mom, Miss Amberline. Amber's going to be going to her IVF appointment. It's her first one, I think, and she wants her mom to come. She says, you wouldn't be having to do all of this stuff if you would just get a man. True. However, she's wanting to preserve her eggs now while she's still trying to get said man, instead of just marrying any Tom, Dick, and Harry. And just as traditional as it is, it's supposed to be your God-given thing to go out and get a man, procreate, have children, die, and that's that. Anyway, Miss Amberline agrees to come with her. She said Amber's going to come pick her up, so that she don't have to drive or anything of that nature. Of course, Amber gives us a little bit more information as to how her mom treats her, as far as why she don't have no man. Ends up asking her, "Are you gay?" And I don't think that she would be asking that question if Amber had not presented any type of tomboy type of attitude. Well, y'all tell me what y'all think, because now it's another way of just saying what's wrong with you. But I think if Amber was that girly girl all the time, she would be asking what's wrong with you. However, she wouldn't have been asking, "Are you gay?" And why is that an insult? I don't know if it's an insult, but it's just like, I don't know. Maybe not an insult. Anyways, Kylan joins. They're unpacking this black chair that Amber bought, and they talk about Kayla. We find out Kayla has put a message on one of Kylan's posts. She does give the accolades to Kylan and all of that, and just encouraging her and even her efforts of even supporting Stormy and all that. And then she says at the end of the post, "And your energy gave, you did a line or two." You're saying that she's on some book of sugar, or I like to call it Andy Cohen. That's a lie. It may have been one thing if you just was talking amongst your circle. Maybe this was kitchen table talk and all of that, but it's just like, wait, what? And Kylan's like, well, you're implying that I'm on some type of drugs. So Kylan decided to troll online, and she did her own dance, and she was saying that she was high off life. Kylan feels like the comment was unnecessary, as Amber did say too. And she said, look, I'm gonna check her myself, because that's just not right. Amber feels like Kyla is the type of person that will throw a rock and hide her hand. Now, I don't know what I got more to say, a little bit more, but Kayla, not so good. Anyway, Stormy's at the warehouse, and she's talking with, I think it's Mark, the creative director. The Love Lala, or I think Lala had her own products or whatever. She said that there was $1 million in sales. So Stormy is the first person on TikTok for 2026 to reach 100 million in sales, or what is it? 1 million in sales. Sorry about that. I think in all total of what was made on that live was 3 million. And Stormy goes into the impact of things not going right, and if y'all could just understand what I gotta go through and why I am the way that I am. Nobody understands the weight that is on my shoulder. Heavy as the ground, especially being the CEO and the face of it all, you're always gonna get the backlash. You get double lashings because of the Love and Marriage Huntsville fandom, because of how they feel about you. True or not true. But anyway, she says that she knows that she's gonna have to deal with the backlash. Unfortunately, you know, I hate that. It does happen, and it was a mistake, but everything got to be in place, and it don't matter what the blame is and whatnot. Even Stormy trying to make it better for folks, it still doesn't matter, because in some type of way they want to see you as perfect, and now you're imperfect, so now all hell has to break loose. It's sad. Chanel, who is also on staff as one of the chief advisors, they talk a little bit about the business, and then they get into, Chanel says, I noticed that someone was missing. I've seen some of the girls, but, and so they talk about Tiffany missing. Stormy brings up on what happened as to why she did not invite Tiffany to the live. She said that there was two things that she was talking about. I guess Tiffany said something about her face and facial expressions. I mean, now Stormy, that is something you got bad. I mean, you started off Love and Marriage Huntsville in that way, in that capacity. So if people are noticing your face, it's you. But anyway, she said something about mopping the floor. And she's like, I'm mopping the floor. She said, don't play with play in your, let's see. Don't play with me. I said, ooh. Or don't play with me playing your, yeah. So then Chanel said, you know, since everyone else was in attendance, why don't you send her a Swifter? We get a little montage. I guess Fumi's in New York's Fashion Week, and she was just letting us know what outfit she's wearing to go to whatever event that she's going to be attending that day. We move on to another get-together with Sonetta, Kayla, Amber, and Tiffany. Amber has invited the ladies to come to this boxing exercise thing. It's more of a routine thing, like they're doing exercises also. So they do all that they do. You've seen even Amber twerking and all that. I said, okay, go ahead, Amber. Then the ladies, they sit, and Sonetta says, you know, the live was amazing, da-da-da-da-da. Tiffany said, I was fine. We went, and my husband and I, we had a good day over in Atlanta, and that was that on that. She said that she peeked in and she did watch the live from wherever she was. And then they described that they were even on camera and they were selling. And then Tiffany, I don't care what anyone says, she was making some shade. When they said, oh, you was on there selling products? Oh, she made you employees? I know Tiffany's going to use that later on. Especially to her advantage. If you want to talk about my mobbing, why you got these folks doing things for you? I mean, it was good exposure for the show that was coming up. Now, I wasn't watching the TikTok live. I didn't even know about it, to be honest. I had heard about the show that was coming out, or at least there was some filming that was going on. So, what was happening? I knew that Martell was filming for something. I don't know if a show was announced at the time, but there was definitely people telling us about Martell being at Stormy's event. But that was a way to promote the show. Anyway, Tiffany's going to use that to her advantage later on. Trust me. We get a little flashback of Tiffany and Fumi having a conversation. Tiffany called to apologize and said that I apologize for asking, are you intimidated by me? And she said, I should have said, it's not the time or the place. So were you apologizing? Because it just sounds like you're just mad that someone came in and interrupted your game night. And you lashed out the way that you did and were dismissive because how dare you come to my game night to interrupt it. That's what it sounds like to me. Fumi said, we see in this flashback that Fumi apologized. You know, what she said, I didn't know how important your couple's game was, and I apologize for coming to you in that manner. However, Tiffany says both of them are good. It's just I don't understand, because it just seems like that was some type of, I don't know if it's passive aggressive, but it was just like you still interrupted something I had going on. But y'all can tell me how y'all felt about that apology from Tiffany. So Amber brings up what Kayla was saying. Kayla didn't even know that that was Amber's niece. Cool. I think Sonetta said, you know, I wouldn't have really said that. I wouldn't have put that on a public forum like that. And she said, yeah, and I ended up taking it down. So someone had to tell you to take it down. Or somehow you realized that you needed to take it down. Interesting. Sonetta says, what could be a joke to you may not be a joke to the next person. Tiffany told Kayla, look, Kylan is crazy, so you just better go on and apologize to her real quick. Sonetta brings up the whole mop thing. You know, I would not have said that because it could come off as a certain way. Tiffany says it was a joke. I just hope within this group that if we do offend, that you would pull them to the side and say, hey, that's not cool, da 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 da. That's what Fumi tried to do, and you dismissed her because you didn't agree that this was what was going on. That's a little hypocritical to me, Tiffany. She says, you know, I want to be around people where I can be myself, but be mindful of the people I am around. Okay? So you don't see anything wrong in what you were saying as far as a joke to Stormy, or anything wrong that you did with Fumi. Nice speech. All that just gives me is church folk stuff. And this is not coming from a church hurt place. I'm just giving you the knowledge because it's just like, yeah, ma'am, you saying all that stuff, but you demonstrating something else. When it's about someone else, but what you want for yourself. All right, so Amber and Miss Amberline, they are headed to her IVF appointment. Amber's just talking about, we're almost at the place, da 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 da. And again, Miss Amberline says that if you had a man, you wouldn't have to go through all this stuff. And of course, Amber was like, Mom. Then we get into Amber's confessional, and she talks about her older cousin, Amanda, who had children when she was later in life. She had a child at 38 and then also at 41. She encourages Amber, you know, go after and do that, you know, and don't be discouraged because of what your mom or anyone else is saying to you. And she said that she wished that she had frozen her eggs instead of just doing, because we don't know the complications that Miss Amanda did have. So, hey. So they get inside. So Amber asked Miss Amberline, when I start this process, I'm going to have to be taking shots every day or every other day. You think you could like come with me? And she was like, I don't like Birmingham. It's too busy. She's a country girl, so I get it. Then they're going to meet with the doctor. All I could see was Dr. Johnson. I saw Johnson, so I'm just going to call her Dr. Johnson. I apologize for this wind if it is distorting this whole audio thing. Dr. Johnson talks about all the steps and the process of everything. And it's good. I think this is the first time actually hearing the more in-depth things that happen during this process and even at retrieving the eggs. Amber says, you know, I've been on YouTube, and she heard a lot of the horror stories. One of the things the doctor did affirm was like, you shouldn't have been going to YouTube, that you do gain weight because it does put your hormones out of whack. She was talking about eating protein and all of that, exercise. Support is what is needed during this process, since you won't be up and down. Amber also is in her confessional saying, you know, with the stress and all, I don't like that Tiffany and Stormy are going through whatever. I'm a planning an event where everyone's going to go to the Civil Rights Museum that they have in Birmingham. Amber asked Miss Amberline, like, could you be with me for 2 weeks as she starts this journey? She said, you forgot I got a husband. Well, she said, you call me when you are feeling down, because the whole depression, and the depression thing that can come about you because of the whole hormone type of up and down thing. So that lets me know that Miss Amberline really loves her child. And I'm not saying this out of a traditional type of way. It's like, look, I can't do that for you, but I love you, and I'm gonna be here to support you as I can, and I know that I can. So please call me, because you're still my baby, and that's enough for me, just to let you know. So yeah, Miss Amberline, I love it. Okay, so the last scene. This is the Civil Rights Museum day. However, most of the ladies can't show up. Fumi's still in New York. Kayla has a problem with the children, and only Tiffany and Stormy will be showing up. Before Tiffany gets there, she's riding with her friend, the first lady, the mayor. She said, you know, hopefully, I hope I'm not giving a bad impression to the lady. I'm bringing you along to show that I know how to have healthy relationships. And she's talking about, oh, we've been friends for 18 years. That don't mean you have a healthy relationship, because your friendship could be out of familiarity. And it don't matter if she's the first lady of Zimbabwe. You could still be having an unhealthy relationship. You could be having a codependent relationship. I get what she's trying to portray, but let's cut out all this fluff. She's really trying to figure out how Stormy could be offended, because when I was even telling her about the mopping up, I was laughing. That don't mean nothing. You could just be a mean girl. That you're being passive aggressive in that whole situation. So then First Lady says, well, you know, because, well, first Tiffany was like, well, you know, she came here to host and all that. And then the First Lady said, well, you know, in hosting, you're supposed to be a servant. You're supposed to serve. Basically, if I ask you to mop, you need to mop. Well, you give me the details before I get there to see if I even want to do that part of hosting. Because if that's a part of hosting, then I will. I'm not your servant. I was just some volunteer. You didn't pay me. What was it? Where we at? Because we're almost done. Lord Jesus. Amber had something go wrong with her first shot of IVF, and she had a bad reaction to it. She said something. Oh, sorry for jumping, because I was just out of place with my notes. First Lady says that she seems to be a person about their success. Kind of like Stormy's giving the impression that I'm too good for this, Like, again, even if you did want to mop, you could have said it in a different way. Anyway. Again, I already said that Tiff and Stormy are the only ones that showed up. So Tiff wants to talk about, you know, Sinetta mentioned that you were offended by some things that I said the other night. So what exactly were you offended by? And then Stormy said, well, do you think you did, that you said something offensive? And then Tiff was like, it's not that I think that I did anything, but I'm asking, how did I offend you? They do this back and forth, patty cake, baker's man type of situation, and we still haven't gotten to the issue. I think Stormy's way, well, let me just say this. Does it look like Stormy just needs to say what happened? Yes. Should Tiffany say what she heard? Yes. Because that's how Stormy's going to evaluate on if this should be a conversation or not. But I don't think that Tiffany was prepared for that. I think Tiffany was prepared to be defensive because she has her answer already in her head. She wasn't going to listen. She just wants Stormy to say what she needs to say so we can get over it. Like, and Stormy's like, nah. Is this conversation even worth having? Because if you're not humble enough to really receive what I have to say, then why are we having this conversation? I can see both sides. What I will say, and I know I'm going to get into it more next week, it seems like in these situations, Tiffany wants to be in control and have this dominance, and in this way of stating I win in arguments, disagreements, discussions, and all of that. That's what she's giving off. I'm putting that on the table right now. We'll discuss it next week because of what I saw in the preview for next week. That was like, but it's just like you want to control all these reality moments. I'm gonna save it, but what I will say is Mr. Carlton King would say, isn't his name Carlos King, would say, you got to live in the moment. We want to see the real moments of reality TV. If you're trying to control it and make sure that your I's and T's are crossed, it's going to come off a little bit produced. I don't think that Tiffany's a bad fit for the group or whatever. I just think that she needs to allow the moments to happen instead of she trying to control the moments. That's all I got for this time. Please let me know what you thought about this episode. Again, if you're hearing the wind, I do apologize. I tried to stop it the best way I could, but I appreciate everyone for coming. Like, comment, and subscribe. Until the next one, peace.